Hey guys, what is going on? Welcome back to Love Money Venus. I'm Emily Litzel. I am your astrologer. We're going to be going through the astrology for the week of January 24th to January 30th. Obviously, the markets are already in a shambles heading into this week from last week. So we start off like the big headline of Monday morning as Mars is now in Capricorn. We know, if you've been following along, then you are aware of the fact that anytime a planet ingresses into a new sign, the market almost always shows some kind of at least like a spike up or a plunge down, if not an outright trend change, going in the opposite direction of where we started. And I just want to take a quick look. I mean, like, this is Mars, okay? So when Mars comes into price action, it can go one of two ways, and only two ways. There's no in between. It's either a very enthusiastic, determined market, right? Ready to put their money where their mouth is, and nothing can shake them, absolutely unflappable. Very quick, speedy ascents, or rapid bloody breakdowns. So I wanted to look at what happened to the Dow the last time that Mars is in Capricorn, to February 18th 2020, which was the last time. We're right here. Oh dear. Like, this is not a happy situation. So yes, it looks like blood. It looks like blood for the beginning of the week, to be honest with you, like right up until about Wednesday. And then even then, it only looks like there's like a chance for a fake out. And this is not financial advice, but I really just don't see a lot that's making me optimistic, right? Like there's just too much activity, and we're coming from too compromised of a place. So that's Monday. We move into Tuesday and things get very exciting because we move straight into the Scorpio moon. This is a mind game now, like that we're kind of losing, right? It's going into Scorpio, and then it's immediately making this water trine to Jupiter, which looks like it should be an optimistic, like a Jupiter trine is, okay, so we're enthusiastic, we're excited about what's going to come. And it honestly looks like we could be building up expectations that are going to get dropped on their faces later in the week. If you're not focusing totally on your portfolio, because your portfolio is not your purpose, like it is not the whole entire reason of you and why you are here. And it is very important this week to make that distinction, because you might be getting some very provocative signals from where your money is going in the wrong direction. But it's really important to keep your eye on the prize here and keep focused with the potential of the week, what it has to offer you, what you can control, because the Scorpio moon, especially with the trine to Jupiter, this looks a lot like starting to obsess over the things that you have no control over, and what the markets are doing, what the price of Bitcoin is, like where these are things that you cannot force in the opposite direction. That is the secret to this Scorpio moon and surviving it. It is knowing what you have control over and then taking hardcore responsibility for all those things, because all of these like Saturn ruled planets that we are dealing with are saying that what you're responsible for, you are responsible for. I do think there's going to be a bit of a reveal over how well we've been attending to the obligations that we have, whether they're obligations that we have taken on ourselves or that society has put on us. Whatever it is, what you are responsible for, what you are steward of, you need to be taken care of, no matter how badly your emotions want you to sit and stew. At the same time, we have the moon opposing Uranus and squaring the sun. So this is like very much like, you know, this is unsettling. Like whatever's happening with Uranus over here is there's like an anxiety that's building up. There's this anticipation. But the sun is basically like, that's our vitality. That is being ground down by whatever our emotional state is. It's like literally like sucking the life out of us. Or you're trying to do something that you have to be like up and confident about, you know, and your ego just keeps getting like torn to shreds by like whatever financial mistakes you think you've made over here in the Scorpio mood, or, you know, a past relationship that went bad, those things that you shouldn't have texted. This is just going to be where a ton of like regrets come flooding up to you. And honestly, like, it's always a good idea to be self-aware, especially with past behavior, and see where you want to change. But again, I'm going to repeat the warning of like, you still can't change the past. You can make different choices in the future going forward, but there's only so long that you can like allow yourself to really just like wallow in where you came from. You do have to keep it moving this week. Like you got to keep it pushing, or else you are going to have to deal with the consequences of not getting your work done. This grind that Capricorn is setting up here in all of these planets, and I do describe that as a grind because this is going to feel like heavy, hard work. There's nothing that's going to spare you from that. Wednesday, we get spicy again. We have the moon squaring Saturn. Scorpio moon squaring Saturn in Aquarius. This right here, so already if we go with our financial astrology principles of the moon representing the public and where we're at, okay, this is a very suspicious and distrusting, paranoid public at the moment. The Scorpio moon has us like gaslit, right? We're questioning our very existence. And Saturn in Aquarius is a definition of like assimilation for the higher good. Saturn in Aquarius does not care about individual rights. It cares about the good of the collective and what your little feelings are, you know, in the course of accomplishing the greatest good for the collective are not going to be taken into consideration. Big news for Wednesday is going to be this moon south node conjunction, which should be interesting. The moon in Scorpio, like we've said, is already going to have us kind of like digging in the depths of the things that we try to push down, that we try to bury, like that we try not to deal with. That's why Scorpio is so deeply associated with the subconscious. And this south node placement is going to be forcing quite a lot of that to the surface. But the south node on its own is a placement dealing with the past that we've come from. So like a kind of reductive way to think about the south node is just that like that's the past and the north node is the future. And so this is also representative of kind of like the gift set and the skills that are inherent to you, like what you don't have to struggle for. Like this is just stuff that comes naturally. The moon south node conjunction in Scorpio looks like a lot of release, whether you want it or not. And that is the best way that I can say this. The Scorpio moon, Scorpio is a fixed sign, so it can get it's fixed water. It is very easy to get stuck in emotions that are super painful and just kind of like replay them over and over again, almost like sort of delighting in the pain, right? And the south node, like we said, it has an ease associated to it. So if you wanted to ride this, like this would be a really good time to let it go, like let it come up to the surface, let it be exposed to light, let it be released. If you were badly positioned when the markets went where they went, if you have had any major losses and you have a lot of insecurity about where your financial future is going, you really do have to center yourself and make sure that you are not making your decisions from that place of financial fear. Because that's the kind of stuff that convinces people to start YOLOing what they don't have and try to make up moves and like start looking for the next best thing. There used to be this common wave of when AMC would have a really massive down day, and then all of a sudden you'd see these bots rolling out with like, you know, next best AMC, like come get your gains here, and like 100%, you know, they're just these really kind of like too good to be true squeeze scenarios would just start rolling out with all these different tickers every single time that retail would be expected to be down. Like it's something we know that all of that is predicated by Wall Street very closely tracking our online chatter and our behavior and our like sort of social moods that go. This is something that like the man knows that we're susceptible to, right? Like you sustained a loss and now you want to make up for that by taking wildly inappropriate actions. This south node moon conjunction is asking you to consider not. Feel the feelings instead, as corny as that sounds. Like you need to process whatever is coming up at this time and you need to let it go because it's not going to feel like that forever. But this stuff is really, this is like deep disappointment that is just has to be dealt with to be able to move on with the rest of the week. Okay. We're done talking about that. You guys know how to process your emotions already. We're going to move on. So that takes us to Thursday. And Thursday, things are starting to get a little bit more spicy. We have Mercury starting to cross over to Pluto. We have the moon finally moving out of Scorpio into Sagittarius. and then immediately squaring Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius. The moon into Sagittarius, especially after you've just gone through all of this with the South Node, is going to feel like finally got to take your bra off at the end of a long day. It's that kind of a feeling, right? Freedom. And it's going to be with the square to Jupiter, that is kind of assuming that you suddenly have more freedom than you do. There could be an overconfidence or the potential for overindulgence in this. But really, I do think it's like kind of the over relief or being like, whew, that's behind me for good, is going to be taken away kind of quickly and be like, okay, no, this is just a breather. This isn't actually like a full respite or a break from whatever circumstances we've been dealing with. But Thursday would be the first day that I would expect to see, not expect, but there's a potential of green for this. There's a potential for green shoots. I don't know if it's a day that actually ends green, or if it's an actual trend that takes hold, because there's a Mercury trine to the North Node, which Mercury rules the markets. North Node is growth and increase. Ordinarily, I would say that's a good sign, but we have Mercury retrograde, and the markets have absolutely hated this Mercury retrograde so far. So it is really hard to say whether or not that is going to be anything significant, but this would be the point where I would start looking for it. And I also think that this is going to be the day where the markets are going to have the news and the results from the FOMC meetings. And the markets are going to be responding accordingly. Like, I do think that this is going to be, I mean, we might as well just get that out of the way. I think that this is going to go in favor of Wall Street. I think that they are going to signal that they're pushing back interest rate hikes, and have fewer plans to take the foot off the gas pedal when it comes to quantitative easing. I don't think we're going to be hearing as much about quantitative tapering, just because of the transits that the US has happening to its chart right now. And because of, I mean, the predicament that the markets are in, unfortunately, I think that they're going to push inflation off until, I mean, honestly, I think it's going to be until mid-year, until Jupiter goes into Aries. Like, we have Jupiter and Neptune co-present. Jupiter and Neptune are both responsible for bubbles, first of all. This is the inflation dream team right here. And they're in domicile, and as long as Jupiter is co-present with Neptune, I would think that inflation is just going to be let to do its own thing. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what they're taking a stab at. But every market right now is dependent on what comes from the Fed. And that is what the astrology is showing. So if I'm not saying like specifically like retail or blue chips or crypto, it's because they're all in the same position this week. Like, everything is waiting for what happens with the United States. Because if you go through all three birth charts with Bitcoin, anything with the stock exchange and the US has massive astrology happening right now. And unfortunately, any of the individual assets that we trade don't have strong enough astrology to compete with the hand that the US is working with. So it's pretty clear that like they set the terms at this point. Whatever happens there is either going to nuke or turbocharge the markets. And it's probably going to look like a little bit of a turbocharge, but then just kind of be petering out a little bit. So we come to Friday, and again, I feel like this looks concerning. I'm going to be honest about it. This is retrograde Mercury getting ready to tap Pluto again, which on its own, like, Mercury rules the markets, Mercury rules trading and commerce. Retrograde, the markets have been in a pitiful state to begin with, and Pluto would be somebody would be a power imbalance, like an unfair advantage, right? Deception, manipulation, wealth hoarding, like all of these whenever Mercury and Pluto have any kind of contact, you see it. So this feels again like there's going to be kind of like significant movement, and it doesn't look like it's really going in a green direction, but I'm hoping to be surprised. This is like a win-win situation for me, because even if my predictions are wrong, my portfolio is going to thank me, or I'm going to get it right, and then I will have like at least the ego boost to deal with while I am waiting for my portfolio to recover with the rest of us. There is a Moon Saturn sextile, which looks actually a little lovely. Like, this is like studying our emotions a bit, right? It's an opportunity to like get a hold of ourselves if we have been going too far on the Scorpio Sagittarius scale of down in the depths, way too high in the clouds. This is like a little chance to get our feet on the ground and review the decisions we're making for Friday. as we get ready to close the market week and go into the crypto weekend. Okay, so before we get into our crypto weekend, we have to take a second to look through the United States chart so you can see why I'm saying what I am about the US really having the astrology that we're all answering to. Most of you probably already know that we are heading into the US Pluto return. The Pluto return is something that an individual cannot experience because you would have to be alive for 248 years to have Pluto return to the same spot it was at when you were born. So this is something that only a really long-standing institution could ever go through, but the most common association is with nations, because nations are frequently the only institutions that have a chance to live this long to be able to see what happened with their Pluto return. So the Roman Empire had 2 different Pluto returns. The British Empire has had 3 so far. And that's where we can go to figure out what this looks like. But for the most part, you see this big period marked with political and economic instability. Everything that Pluto and Capricorn rules, you have already been through since 2008. It's a good thing to think about, what's been happening since 2008? What kicked all of this off? We came into this period where Pluto and Capricorn is handing unfair power advantages to the establishment, right? To the people that already hold the power, are able to use it, to abuse it, to hold on to it forever. And we saw that because we came into this massive economic crisis caused by banks that literally had very few repercussions, if any. They were handed more resources and more bailouts to be able to kind of continue doing business as usual at the expense of the American people. Fast forward to now, we're still going through this in a very big way. There's clearly something happening with the markets where they are not functioning the way that they should be. And it's got the rest of the US economy tied up in a knot, because if they crash, then the rest of us go down with them. And that is the position that the Fed finds themselves in again. We're not even at the Pluto return yet. We have 2 more fascinating aspects that we have to work through. We have Saturn, and I didn't even see this until I started looking through for this forecast, trining the US Sibley charts Saturn. At the same time, we have Jupiter trine Jupiter. I could not even find an instance where both of these were happening at the same time. Okay, so the previous US Saturn trine Saturn transit was in 2 parts. The first one was March 19th, 1992 under a Bush presidency. And at that time, I looked through Axios and Forbes, and we were hitting a bottom with an economic recession. Hopefully, Bush was calling out that he thought that this was going to be the low point and we were going to start having some kind of a pivot. So we had a second hit of that degree of the Saturn trine Saturn at the end of that year, which was in a Clinton presidency. Okay, so there was a retrograde and then it hit again. And the exact day that we had that Saturn return was the day of the Clinton Economic Forum. They had basically a panel to sit down and figure out how to fix the economy and how to start moving forward. So you see this this kind of closure coming in, right? There was the first acknowledgement of okay, everything is broken, it's down as far as it can go. And then there's the attempt to rebuild when we come around to have that aspect again. Okay, so for the Jupiter trine Jupiter transit, I'm just going to read to you from the CNN clip that I found of the actual day of February 25th, 1998, because I don't think I can summarize it, and you'll see how closely it works with what we're already going through. Bonds and the dollar rallied Wednesday as investors found reason for optimism in Alan Greenspan's cautious description of the U.S. economy. The Federal Reserve Chairman concluded his 2-day Humphrey Hawkins testimony on the economy and monetary policy, during which his words seemed to hint that the Fed is likely to leave interest rates unchanged in the near term. Wednesday's market response was a change from a day earlier. Many who had hoped to get a signal that a rate cut was imminent from Greenspan's testimony were disappointed Tuesday, sending bonds into a tumble. But on Wednesday, the same investors decided that stable interest rates, already quite low, were not so bad after all. So this was, again, every time that we've had one of these trends coming up, we're having major economic either announcements, there's been meetings, there's been reviewing. We're in exactly the same place that the U.S. is finding itself in now. whatever decision they do end up making and its coinciding effects on the market and or inflation looks like it is going to bring us right into the United States Pluto return, because Pluto will be hitting the United States Pluto by degree as soon as like February 2nd. After this point, after this month, because this is going to go on until about February 22nd, there will be no uncertainty as to what the problem is, right? We're going to know what we're dealing with. And the reality of it is it's probably going to still be unwinding until Pluto moves into Aquarius, I would say. So we're going to be unworking this for like the next couple of years. It's going to send some massive shockwaves through the economy from what I'm seeing. But I don't think that it's going to be any more massive. Like, it is what it looks like, right? Like, you already know what you're dealing with. It's the same stuff. Like, it's just going to reach a heightened pitch, or people are going to say things in their outside voices that they had been saying in their inside voices. There might be more clarification that things really were rigged. There could be a spilling of secrets at this point, but they're still going to be related to the themes that we've already seen. I've never lived through a Pluto return, so I don't know. But like, in my humble opinion, this is just going to be a very climactic sort of summit to everything that has already been going on through the Pluto and Capricorn transit. Okay, now we can go into our crypto weekend and wrap this whole thing up. I'm very sorry, Bitcoin and crypto holders, and for myself as well. I do not think that we're seeing any significant rallies here because I don't see anything that outweighs the effect of this Saturn-Neptune opposition. This is a total loss of confidence. This looks like a very frustrating, just a frustration and kind of a demoralizing effect. We also have this Moon-Mars conjunction happening on Saturday, which is going to be a tricky one for everybody. This is a lot of emotion, and this could be a re-energized, buying public for Bitcoin maybe, but it looks like it's really going to have more of a rapid decline, especially because Mercury retrograde has just tapped Pluto again for the markets and for currency. Venus has finally gotten a chance to go direct, but she's still at a standstill in the sky, so she's really not able to like help in any way that matters. I really don't see big turnarounds. I don't. Bitcoin has already been through quite a lot at this point. This Mars ingressing into Capricorn put Mars immediately on top of Bitcoin's Pluto. When we have this Moon-Mars conjunction, it's landing right in between Bitcoin's Pluto and Mars, and they're heading into a Mars return. Mars return could actually be like beneficial. It could be a big boost depending on what else is going on in the sky. But between that and with the Pluto-Mercury conjunction, Mercury retrograde conjunction that is hanging out right near their Jupiter, which gives like the Pluto just turbocharges whatever kind of Plutonian descent is scheduled. I just don't see it. Sunday, we're just coming closer to the Mars return, other than there's Sun conjunct North Node. This could be a rally, a little bit like an overcorrection on Saturday, and then Sunday pops up with some good. I could totally see that happening. This is a market that I'm very like uncertain of. This is a market that I don't know if I have like the skills or the experience to be able to trade. And that is just something that's important to be able to say. Like, you have to know where you are in this market, and you have to know where your own abilities stand, because this is really going to lay bare the people that should be messing with it and the people that shouldn't. You cannot be making your financial decisions out of desperation. You really can't do it. There's some very severe financial realities coming up for quite a lot of you if you don't have like, $1 million brokerages that have been established. The child tax credit has been ended. That's something that retail is going to be feeling keenly, right? Tax returns aren't going to look like what they looked like years before, because a lot of families have been getting their child tax credit split out over the course of the year. As far as we know at this point, we only have until May, which is like another like 4 months away before student loans start getting are reactivated and those payments are due. So that's kind of a lot of financial knocks to retail's ability to mobilize in the stocks that they're in. And I think that that is going to be felt. That is what I have for you this week. Beginning of the week, I think, is red or just straight paused, uncertainty, waiting to see what the Fed is going to do. I think that the Fed is going to leave interest rates where they are and possibly even walk back, talk of interest rate hikes in favor of the markets over deflation. And I do think on Thursday or Friday, there could be a bit of a green rally, at least for the stock market. I don't know if crypto is going to make it with it. And then the weekend looks complicated. If one of the days has to be better, Sunday looks slightly better for Bitcoin with the Sun North Node conjunction being able to come in and the beginning of a Mars return. So there may be a chance for green there. But overall, like, I don't have huge hopes for any kind of a big push or rally. There's some very real financial pressures on all of us. And I just really want to reiterate the advice of this entire forecast. Please don't be making financial decisions from a place of desperation. If you have sustained major losses that are really messing with you, if you are super scared about your financial future, you have got to address that and handle that and get stable within that before you start throwing around any more money if you get your hands on it. Before you start selling everything, before you start leveraging yourself to try and make like the next big play or like short everything into oblivion because you're going to make back everything that you lost. There's just too many fake outs in this week. There's just going to be so many mixed signals that if you take impetuous action that is based on anything but a solid trading plan, I think you're going to regret it, and you're going to regret it big, and you're going to regret it fast. Be prudent, be cautious, be all the things that Saturn and all these Saturn ruled planets are asking you to be, and you're going to be fine. But this is definitely a week that has more emphasis on your purpose, your goals, like as a spirit on this earth, like what you are supposed to contribute to your family, what you're supposed to contribute to your social ecosystem. All of these things should be clamoring for your attention right along like the blood in your portfolio. And it is really important that you pull your attention off what isn't working in the stock market and put it back into the things that you do have control over, and that you can actually make some kind of positive dent in. And even that is going to feel like a shit ton of work. That's not going to be like a walk in the park, but at least you're going to be getting somewhere, and you're going to be feeling like you're going to have something to show for it afterwards. The rest of this is going to sort itself out. I know this sounds dark-sided, but we are really just kind of in this like birth canal where the country has to do what the country has to do. And there's a reckoning that has to happen with how the financial systems have been abused in this country. And that has to get untangled, and nobody has a good, clear idea of how they're going to do it. And we, as the public, there's no chance that we actually know how bad it is right now. This is entirely like 2008. That's what it feels like. Like at the highest levels, they have a pretty clear idea of how bad it is, but there's really like a lot of work to keep us from knowing so that there isn't just a run on the banks, so that everybody doesn't panic at the same time and take all of their money and put it God knows where. So everybody have an awesome week. Make good choices. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed yet. We love likes. We love comments. And I will see you guys next week.